We hear about the AI chip war between the US and China all the time. It's always framed as this epic race for supremacy. But what if I told you they aren't even competing for the same prize? What if they're running in two completely different races with two totally different finish lines?
And that's really the big question we're digging into today. We think of this as one big sprint to the end. But when you look at the strategies, it starts to look more like a clash between two fundamentally different philosophies, two different ideas of what winning even looks like.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by unpacking America's playbook and then compare it to China's very different approach. After that, we're going to get into the super critical debate over chip exports, take a look at a rising third model called sovereign AI, and then we'll try to figure out what this all means for the future of this pretty wild rivalry.
Okay, let's start by framing this whole competition. Because it's not just about who can build the smartest AI, it's really about how they plan to use that intelligence to shape the world.
This slide right here gets to the heart of it all. You've got two completely different philosophies. On one side, the United States is betting everything on what we're calling frontier performance. The goal is just raw power. Build the biggest, baddest models and sprint towards artificial general intelligence, or AGI. But China? They're playing a totally different game, mass integration. They're not focused on having the single best model. They're focused on making AI cheap, efficient, and weaving it into the fabric of everything, every factory, every app, every device. So let's zoom in on America's playbook for a second. It's all about creating a lead in raw power that's so massive, nobody else can even hope to catch up. And that whole strategy? It really boils down to two things: a whole lot of capital and a whole lot of compute.
And get this, the numbers behind this strategy are just staggering. US firms control a whopping 70% of the world's AI computing power. And this year, just this year, the big tech companies are on track to spend a jaw-dropping $650 billion on AI infrastructure. That massive pile of cash is what buys you that lead, letting labs like OpenAI and Google stay about 7 months ahead of their Chinese rivals. So at the end of the day, the American thesis is really simple. Compute is king. The country with the most powerful chips and the biggest data centers is going to train the most advanced AI, be the first to get to AGI, and lock in a major long-term advantage.
Okay, so how do you possibly respond to that? Especially when you're blocked from buying the best chips and you can't match that kind of spending. Well, you don't try to play the same game. You change the rules.
You see, China's strategy was really born out of necessity. US export controls made those top-tier chips really hard to get and super expensive. So instead of trying to chase that bleeding edge of performance, Chinese companies did a smart pivot. They focused on making their AI models as efficient, as cheap, and as easy to adopt as humanly possible. Their goal isn't to build the best model, it's to build the most used model. And this slide shows you their primary weapon, cost. So a token is basically a little piece of a word that an AI chews on. Now, to process 1 million of them, a top US model like Claude Opus from Anthropic costs $25. A comparable Chinese model, a little over $1. That's a cost advantage of more than 20 to 1. I mean, that's not just a discount, that is a strategic weapon designed for one thing: global domination through adoption. So, is that price weapon working? Oh, you better believe it. This chart is pretty stunning. Even though they're technically less powerful, Chinese models are absolutely crushing it in real-world usage. If you measure by weekly token consumption, which is a great way to see what people are actually using, Chinese models are being deployed over 4 times more than their American competitors. They are winning the volume game, hands down. So how are they pulling this off? Well, it's a 3-part strategy. First, they engineer for insane efficiency, trying to squeeze every last drop of performance out of less advanced chips. Second, they're all in on open source. While the top US models are kind of these proprietary black boxes, Chinese firms often just release their models for free. This lets anyone, especially in developing nations, build on their tech, which helps spread their standards globally. And third, they are relentless about physical integration. And here's where that physical integration gets real. The AI adoption rate in China's industrial sector is double that of the US. So while a lot of American manufacturers are kind of stuck in pilot project mode, Chinese factories are already putting AI and humanoid robots on their assembly lines, which only helps solidify their dominance in global manufacturing. Okay, this all brings us to a huge, really complicated question facing US policymakers right now. The recent decision to allow the sale of NVIDIA's H200 chip, a very powerful, though not quite the absolute best AI chip, to China. And the arguments here are just worlds apart. On one side, people say selling these chips brings in huge revenue, and this is key, it keeps China hooked on the US hardware ecosystem, specifically NVIDIA's CUDA software, which is the industry standard. The hope is that this might make China less motivated to build its own chips. But on the other side, critics are saying this is dangerously short-sighted. They argue it gives away America's precious compute lead, speeds up China's mass deployment strategy, and does basically nothing to stop Beijing's push for its own completely separate tech stack. But while Washington and Beijing are battling it out, there's a third, really fascinating model that's starting to emerge. And it's being championed by countries like India, who frankly don't want to be dependent on either superpower.
This quote just captures the spirit of this movement perfectly. It is a declaration of technological independence.
And this strategy has a name: sovereign AI. The core idea is for a nation to build its own complete AI ecosystem from the ground up. The goal is to protect data privacy, create models that are actually tailored to local languages and cultures, and maybe most importantly, avoid being dangerously reliant on foreign tech platforms, whether they're American or Chinese. India is probably the best example of this in action. You've got projects like BharatGen and Sarvam AI building models specifically for India's 22 official languages. But what's really cool is their approach to infrastructure. They're creating shared, state-subsidized computing resources, a kind of digital public infrastructure, to help out local startups and researchers. It's a powerful third option for nations that want to carve their own path. So where does all this lead? Well, it doesn't look like we're heading towards a future with a single AI superpower. The reality is probably going to be a lot more complex and a lot more interesting. As many analysts are pointing out, the most likely future is something they're calling asymmetric bipolarity. And what that means is that both the US and China are going to be leaders, but in very different ways. So this is probably what the future looks like. A world where the US continues to own the absolute cutting edge, the most powerful AI models, the most advanced cloud services. But at the same exact time, China could completely dominate mass adoption. Its cheap, open source models could become the default in huge parts of the world, and its leadership in weaving AI into the physical economy, we're talking robotics, manufacturing, logistics, could become totally undeniable. And that leaves us with one last, big question to think about. As this technology continues to change our world, what's the ultimate source of power? Is it building the single smartest AI in a lab, or is it getting a good enough AI integrated into everything everywhere? The answer to that is probably going to define the next century.